Great, thank you very much, Renu. Hello, and on behalf of myself and the panel, we're absolutely delighted to have you all here this morning. And we're particularly happy to see so many young people in the audience with us here today. You are the future of our world, but you also are very much the present. So please don't let anyone tell you that you cannot be active in shaping the world around you today. And so I would very much like to encourage you all to take part in this discussion. We're going to try and leave as much time for questions and discussion at the end of the panel. So please don't feel shy if you have questions. We want to hear from you and what you think about that. And so today we're going to look a bit at AI, or artificial intelligence, and how that is shaping our world, particularly in the context of cities. So we live in an increasingly urbanized and urbanizing world, which comes with many opportunities but many challenges for our planet. Cities are a particular drain on the natural resources of our world. They take more, they use more carbon, they take more from the environment than other parts of the world. And they, as much as they offer opportunities to people who move to cities, they can also play a terrible role in exacerbating inequalities and actually providing a very low quality of life for some people. So how, or if artificial intelligence can help solve some of these challenges which we have. Artificial intelligence is something which we hear an awful lot about in the media. It's talked a lot about by different governments. Potentially this is something that's going to come and solve all of our problems. But is that the case? And what do we need to be careful of when we're talking about artificial intelligence, and what do we really mean? At the end of the day, artificial intelligence should be there to help us as humans to live a better life. And we should also not forget that artificial intelligence is designed by humans. So there is always a human component in artificial intelligence. And so how do we make sure that that human component stays there as we move forward? Or in fact, perhaps the question is, do we need to ensure that that human component needs to stay there? And so to further delve into and explore this issue, we have three fantastic panelists with us today. And so what I'm going to ask them to do, starting with Sanika, is to introduce a little bit about their work, and then we'll hear from each of them where they see the challenges and opportunities within AI. So Sanika, I'll pass to you first, please.
Thank you, Jennifer, for this kind introduction. Thank you, Renu, as well. Hello, I'm Sanika Zawarkar. I work as a senior operation research scientist for Shell. Yes, the same petrol pump there where we fill our petrols, right? So that's the company I work for. So initially I started with Mitsubishi Hitachi Power Systems in Japan, where I was working for digital twin power systems for thermal power plants. So it's more of process optimization for reducing or for decarbonization for the emissions that are thrown out of the flue gases that are thrown out of our thermal plants. And I also contribute and spearhead the organization of Shell with respect to lubricant plants, LNG plants. So this is more of industrial analytics, where we see oil being the main combustion primary reason for the carbon footprints that we have today. We are working towards using AI as our tech stack to develop digital twins or processes, algorithms to help us decarbonize these processes. Yes, it's challenging, but we are absolutely doing our best to get to it.
Hello, I'm Smita Kale, and thank you for the kind introduction. I would like to tell us about our organization called Shelter Associates. Shelter Associates is a 30-year-old NGO working in the space of urban slums. So basically, we are focusing on sustainable sanitation and housing solutions for urban poor to enhance the quality of life, because right now the condition or the environment they are living in is not the livable condition, and they are part of a city. So for a resilient city, for a sustainable city, we need to look for them, and how we can enhance their quality of life is our vision and mission. So basically, all these 30 years, we have been focusing on sanitation practices, like one home, one toilet is our flagship program. And way before SBM was launched, we had started facilitating household toilets in slums. And till now, we have facilitated more than 27,000 household toilets across the 7 cities of Maharashtra in slum population. And that has really impacted the life of women, children, elderly, the physically challenged people also, and always neglected even men also, because everybody thinks that men can go anywhere and it's easy for them, but it is not. And that is how it has impacted. And through social housing also, we have impacted more than 9,000 households. So our approach is data-backed, data-driven, community-centric, and multi-stakeholder approach. So everything should be inclusive. It should not be like we force them to do something. We need to have the inclusive approach and understand their needs. And understanding needs, understanding the need, doing for need assessment data is a pivotal part of it. And that is why we started with the data. And Shelter Associate has pioneered the use of GIS in poverty mapping in India. So in late 90s, we started with using GIS technologies, softwares, Google Earth, and started mapping the slums on this platform. And now we have digitized like more than 400 slums. Even in Pune, in Pune, we know that there are more than 400 slums, but Pune, Pimpri-Chinchwad, Navi Mumbai, Thane, Panvel, Kolhapur, Sangli, all these cities that we have been working, we have mapped more than 3 lakh households and collected the household level data, which will give us the insights. And that is why it's a data rich organization, and data and technology is very core for us. And that is why we would like to explore the AI and how it can help us to make a good impact on the community is what we are looking for. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Shruti. I run an organization called GRIT. It's an environmental design and research studio. Our practice focuses primarily on architecture and landscape architecture. And everything that we do, every decision that we make at the studio comes from some kind of evidence. So we have an evidence-based practice, which means that there's a lot of observational studies that happen at our studio. There's a lot of data that goes in terms of how people use spaces, how we as humans use our cities, our public spaces, our private areas. And also it's not just about how humans use spaces, but also the natural environment. So we're really at the interface. Our work is primarily at the interface of both the human and the natural environment, and we look at it in the context of urban cities.
Thank you. And so now what I'm going to ask each of our panelists to do is in 5 minutes discuss or share with you where they see challenges but also opportunities for using artificial intelligence or technology in their work.
Sure. I am so excited for this. Let me just put forth a couple of points here. The challenge is that each one of us work in a very, very different domain, where the challenges that we face are completely different, but ultimately I feel they funnel up together with certain bottlenecks we might have can be common. So few of the challenges. So what is net zero for us, and why is there a conference of parties, the COP28 that is happening? Why are we so behind climate changes? Why are we so behind this carbon credits and finance trading for them? So basically net zero, as in simple terms, is reducing our greenhouse gases, which are affecting our climate. Obviously we can see in Pune as well, we still have rains till September's. Octobers, which is not really how it is expected to behave, and again the same different temperatures that we have across Europe, across the world, right? So there are certain agreements like Paris agreements or these conference of parties happening, which help us or make us more aware of what we should be doing as humans. So that's where I would like to contribute my skills, where we have our AI, and the challenge that we are facing currently is, okay, is everybody, since this AI is developed by human, it has to be human-centric. So are humans at heart of it? Yes, we understand people are a little conservative in accepting technology these days. So they are not readily accepting that yes, this particular thing, it's not replacing you. It's we need to understand it's for decision making, a support for decision making, and AI is not making decisions for you. Absolutely not. So that's where the challenge comes in. For me, it's my business stakeholders, where I work with, at the plants, at the assets, right, to explain them, hey, the thing that you're doing in Excel can be, AI driven and actually make better decisions, because human can max think with a 3D knowledge. When it goes to more dimensions, and that's why the computers were invented, right? Because we don't have, as humans, don't have that calculative mind to work on it. So that's where the challenge comes in. We have to have AI. We have to convince people that, okay, this can work out, and it is for our betterment that we have to work towards having AI as part of our life. So she works for Shelter. The data there is very primary, and I work on secondary data. And what I mean by that is I work on sensor data. It is readily available for me majority of the times. I just need to clean it, make it more structured, but for her it's more of surveys, and people need to come. She has to go house to house, she has to do site visits. Even that's what the grid where Shruti works for is, right? So there are different challenges each of the domain has. I mean, you can just pitch it and start with it.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you that AI should not be a decision maker. It is a tool that we need to use very carefully and cautiously, because when we are dealing with the primary data, and the data we collected is very sensitive, and nowadays we need to take care of data privacy, and it should not be misused. That is the thing that we need to take care of. So while using any technology or AI, we need to know what are the guidelines, what are the laws, and how we and our people are using the data and sharing it with or whatever the use it's. So basically, these are the tools. Like whatever you will give input, that will get output. If there is a garbage in, garbage out. So you need to use those very carefully as well. And like for NGO sector, the challenges, I would say that we always have a challenges of our resources. Resource allocation, the proper use of resources is very crucial, and we have to be mindful of our spendings as well. And that is where technology can help us. It can increase our, efficiencies. It can give us the proper kind of guidance and make the use of most of the use of our time. Because it's a very simple example. If I have to do some analysis from the primary data and do some find out the solutions or the analysis, then these tools are very helpful. If I'm spending like 4 days for a particular thing, if with the use of technology, if I can do it in 2 days, I can utilize my 2 days for the community. That is the thing that we are looking from NGO's perspective, because we have to be very mindful of our resources. And that is how we are looking at AI, or ChatGPT or something like that. These are the tools. We are not very aware of right now what are the different tools, and I'm not as technical as Sania is. So we would really like to learn about it more, how we can utilize it, how we can maximize whatever the knowledge and we have, and we can utilize it. That's the thing that we would be really looking forward. Because right now, I'll give you one example that we are doing, the Plus course that we are deploying. So as I said, that the GIS technology, we are using it. But during COVID time, we realized that locating a particular patient or particular house in a slum is impossible task. We used to get calls from corporations that you have slum data. Can you tell us where this person is, living? We want to, because when they get the reports, they wanted to track those patients and do the buffer zones and all. And that is how we started realizing the importance of navigable addresses. And that is how we started collaborating with Google to give the Plus scores to each and every hut. so that it is navigable on Google Map. So this is how we can use it, because lat long values are there, you know, like from the existence of the planet, but we were not using it for our social cause, and that is how the technology can help you to reach out to more and more people. So that's the thing.
Okay, I think we've heard a little bit about, you know, how the industry in a specific sector works. I think we've also heard a bit about how it works at the grassroots level, at the NGO level, you know, what your challenges are. So what I'll try and do as an architect planner is I'll try and look at this from a more macro perspective. I'll first sum up a little bit and then perhaps share a little bit of complexities is what I like to call it, more than challenges, because I think when we say complexity, it allows us to find the solution right away, or at least it helps us dig into finding a solution than making it too challenging for us. So I think in terms of opportunities, from what I hear that we've been speaking, first is that the analysis of extensive data sets. So AI really affords us that in terms of not just you know, data sets for you, for your clientele, or trying to get data from people. We're also looking at how all of this data can then input into neighborhood planning, into land use. For example, Pune city is under India's Smart Cities mission. We've actually been working on a mobility plan that looks at traffic management, it looks at traffic patterns in terms of climate change. We're looking at climatic data. So all of this still is part of the urban and the natural environment. So I think this ability of AI to be able to generate and help us with analyzing large extensive data sets is the huge plus. Associated with this is the second, which is about spatial mapping. And when I say spatial mapping, it's about how do you visualize and look at different areas and then mitigate risk, disaster, and management of risk. How can we do that? So, you know, how do you identify vulnerable areas? How do you identify areas that are safe in your country, in your cities, that you could probably go to in case of there's a natural disaster? I think that's pretty much, you know, what you were trying to address as well in terms of, you know, the COVID situation. Absolutely. And then I think the third thing that, which is my favorite, that technology, related technology and AI affords, is agility. It gives us speed, it gives us the ability to quickly go back and make change and to come back to our client, to come back to our customer. It helps us in terms of saying, okay, this is not how it works. There's a changing market trend. How do you apply, how do you get back to it really quick in a really short span of time? Because you're able to crunch data, look at it and have better decision making. I think this is really the key of all of it. And I'm sure everyone here is on Instagram. Everyone, you know, has access to social media. We've been seeing a lot of images nowadays of, you know, visualized cities, the utopian vision of cities. This is how a future city can look like. So I think the most powerful part of AI today that I see is the visualization of a future city. This is how it could look like. And I think that's the last point that I would like to add in terms of opportunities. And, you know, again, while I said there are opportunities, there are also complexities attached to it. We are able to visualize our cities. But if you want to make humanized spaces, if you want to make human cities, then we will need human beings to come in and help us design those spaces. Because technology can take us thus far, and I don't know how much more beyond. I'm not going to say it doesn't take us beyond that. I don't know how much more beyond. The scope is infinite. How do we plan to use technology to think out of the box? It's a tool for us for that. It's a tool to design better. It's a tool to think in terms of processes better, in terms of systems and operations better. But it's not a tool, or it cannot drive your design. It cannot drive what you create for future. And especially in a place where we still are looking at macro level data. We're looking at big data. We're looking at traffic patterns and saying this is how mobility should work. This is how pedestrian mapping will work. But what does that mean for a young person who's sitting here in the audience? What does it mean for you when you're crossing the road? How does your city look like to you? And I think we're still lacking that in terms of AI. That is a complexity that we definitely have. And given that we'll be designing and we create for the future generation, it is only our responsibility that we are able to create a better place so that, and you need to be at the table when we are making these decisions, right? We need to have children and young people. We need to consider their opinions, their experience of space, and to bring down AI to that minuscule level, to that subjectivity, is what is the nagging question for me personally in the work that we are doing today. So, yeah.
Just to add to what you're saying, that this visualization of cities, and whenever we work with the slum children, and then we often have activities like, how do you visualize your house? How do you visualize your environment and all? And there's a lot of creativity into that, and we get a lot of good pictures and drawings. They do it like how they visualize it. So it's really important to engage with the young crowd and get their point of view into the visualization. And the always slums are invisible when the city planning is done. So we want to make them to be invisible visible, and do the city planning and visualization holistically, because those are part of cities.
Right. I think this is going to become a very good conversational thing. I'm going to rope you in a minute. I think, so I agree with you that there are marginalized groups, and there is a certain level of the invisible fabric that we have in our cities. However, I do want to say there is a positive outlook where, there are a lot of PPPs, which means public-private partnerships, that are happening in the city across the country, which are recognizing marginalized groups. They do recognize the invisible fabric in our cities, and we are trying to build that in with all of the data that, organizations like Shell, I mean, though you are an oil-based company, I'm sure that the kind of demographic data that comes to you has a direct impact on how our neighborhood and land use planning works for us, right? So just plugging that in.
Yeah. So I completely resonate with what Shruti and Smita said. So yes, you are the generation, you will be the future. We are working for your future as well as ours. So one of the challenges, everybody here have learned these basic things like renewable energies, reduction in emissions, carbon offsetting. How much are we doing for it? What efforts are we putting in our day-to-day lives, as simple as day-to-day lives, to make our country more sustainable? Or let's start from the city. Why it's not even us, me, or probably I'm initial JIT, it's a Japan-India Transformative Technology Network contribution, where I would want to work on to net zero, joint net zero venture with different countries. But are we starting with small steps there? And absolutely, so the question, if I was asked this particular question, hey, what steps are you taking in your daily lives? So how do I know, where do I go to? Are there any NGOs or are there any organizations that are currently working in these specific areas? Yes, there are. There are many organizations that are working towards sustainability, as simple as Manapa. Municipal corporation is working across having electric vehicles, having smart cities which are more renewable energy, the demand for electrification using RES. And as well as something that we really need to look forward to is, how are we each contributing to it? So any domain, may it be whatever domain that we are working on, how are we contributing it? How are we contributing to it? So it's not only AI or technological stuff that we work on. So there are certain domain or areas, as she rightly said, right? I work for Shell. We have a lot of data across demographics because we have that infrastructure in place for us to collect data. It wasn't there 25 years ago, but it is there now. So here we have, okay, what's happening at that particular petrol pump in Africa? I know what's happening there right away today. But I don't know, as she said, right, there are a lot more domains here still not having that data, which would actually help us do more statistical analysis, basic decision-making support. So that's where we also need to understand is like, hey, can we support that? Can we join certain organizations to make those secondary data available for such NGOs and organizations?
Thank you very much, ladies. And so I hope that's given you a lot of food for thought. I think it's very clear from what has been shared on this panel that there's a lot of connection, that AI is not something floating up in the sky, that it's very much rooted to what we are doing in our day-to-day lives, and that our input is necessary for that. But also that there's huge gaps in what AI can currently do because of data that's available, how we're collecting that data, but also who we're deciding who's counted in data and so on. And so now what we'd like to do is open the floor to questions. I think there's someone with a microphone if there are questions. So please just put your hand up if you have a question for the panel. Yes, please. In the front. Is there a microphone?
No, I think I'll be audible.
No, wait, so there's some folk at the back. Make sure that everyone can hear you.
Hi, I think the viewpoints that you shared, all of you all shared, were quite insightful. My question is regarding the slum rehabilitation programs that are implemented through the Slum Rehabilitation Authority, the SRA authority, wherein they decide to develop a certain slum using certain bylaws, and they would construct high-rise in place of their ground-storied like a shelter house. So in your experience, can there be a better design of those apartments, so to say, using AI? And what tools can you suggest based on your existing data with working in these communities on how can those apartments or those housing can be better designed using that data by modeling them into AI?
Yeah, very good question. I'm not very expert into the SRA or I'm not an architect, but in our experience as an organization, what we have done is we collect data from each and every household. Like for example, if a particular slum is going under the rehabilitation, but only thing, our approach is not just limited to that particular area. We should have a neighborhood approach or a city-wide approach. Like in tier 1 cities, it may not be possible to have a complete city-wide approach, but a neighborhood approach should be applied. Like, we have a cluster of slums or cluster of areas, and how we can then optimize, because land is a resource that is a very scarce resource and valuable. So how we can optimize that, and considering the requirement of the people, because their lifestyle is a little bit different of what we are living in. So their needs are different, and that is why when we get the data, sometimes it is like livelihood opportunities needs to be addressed. Like because many times the household they have in-house some short kind of the gruhodyog we call it in Marathi. So their needs need to be addressed, and unless we have a data about it, like what is their requirement, what is their visualization, we can't plan the design also.
So do you have any indicators is my question.
Yeah,
I mean, existing, what are the indicators that through your questionnaires, what are those indicators that the slum dwellers would want to change? I mean, what change do they want in their existing dwell? And
Yes.
what change do they don't want in their existing as
Absolutely.
well? Because I have a friend who lives in these slum dwelling, and he gave an interesting insight. He said, your children have to really walk a lot and go to a park and play.
Yeah.
But whereas my children have a park right outside the house.
Yeah.
So they can just step out and play on the street and come back home, and we have a good eyesight on them. It's very easy. So we don't want to lose that. So don't develop, don't care
high-rise.
for us, don't develop. We are very happy where we are staying. So how do you counter this, and how do you make them visualize using AI as a platform? See, artificial intelligence, I firmly believe that we all should have natural intelligence first, and then probably think about using artificial intelligence. But I mean, of course, as a programming tool, how can you use this to make their lives better?
Yeah, we have identified certain indicators like based on the data and based on our experiences. And we have done this study in Kolhapur. We have done the citywide survey and housing research project. We have done it, and based on the indicators, we have identified vulnerability index. That is what we call it. It considers like what is their current situation. What are the, even the family composition is also important. Always we think that they have a big families. 5-6 log to hai every house, but it is not the case. Even in slums also now the family sizes have reduced, and in the city of Kolhapur it is close to 4. Even in Pune also it is between 4 and 5. So it is not beyond 5, not even 5. And that is what we will have some certain perceptions about the the composition of the particular area, and that is why we have identified certain indicators, vulnerability in terms of DPR, in terms of their topography, even the if physically challenged people are there, they would need certain different design for their housing and accessibility. All those things we have already identified, and we have published that report also on our website, and would really love to share with you also if you are interested. Yeah, but AI as such, that we haven't used AI for designing it, but right now we are manually applying it. So would love to have some tools.
I think I'll add to that. I'll just add to what you were saying. I think I worked in community development for 10 years before I started my own practice. And my biggest takeaway working in community development was that you learn empathy, you learn to keenly observe, and you have thick descriptions of everyday life that you probably as a privileged human being do not experience it on a daily basis. And then you start to become more sensitive in your approach towards design and planning and so forth. Now, to address your question, how do you bring AI, how do you use AI as a tool to help people who are living in informal settlements visualize their future? I think it's very powerful, and I don't think it has been explored yet. My understanding, please correct me, of NGOs and community development organizations is that we still use charts, we still use pens and markers and large sheets of paper. About 7 years ago, when I was working in Delhi, we were working with young people who are all your age, and we were assessing the quality of their home environment. We were saying, does your house have a roof? Do you have a toilet? Does the toilet have light? Basic indicators is what we were asking. And we were still doing it with pen and paper, and that was the time when we said, you know what, everybody has a mobile phone today. How do you use a very simple mobile phone? It doesn't have to be a smartphone. Everyone also has a smartphone today. So I'm talking 7 years ago, we were saying everyone has access to technology. How do you use that where people are able to evaluate the quality of their physical environment? And can that ground level data then be inputted for decision makers is one part of it, which always happens. But to empower young people, to empower people living in informal settlements and tell them, this is your today, this is how your tomorrow could look like, I think we're still far away from it. We haven't yet stepped into that realm of saying, this is how the future could look like for informal settlements, and there is a lot of work that needs to go into it. I would actually open this up to any of the young people in the audience, and I'd love to ask them their experience. I can see a lot of school-going kids, if I'm not wrong, yeah? You're all in your 8th, 9th, 10th? Yeah? Yeah, okay, I can't hear anything. Okay, super, lovely. Now, can we hear from some of you, what is your experience of going to school? Sagalna Marathi yeto? Okay, चालेल. सकाळी उठून तयार होऊन आपण शाळेत जातो बरोबर हां कॅन आय गेट 5 डिफरंट स्टोरीज ऑफ हाऊ व्हॉट इज युअर एक्सपिरियन्स तुम्ही बस घेऊन जातात ऑटोला जातात चालत जातात सायकल घेऊन जातात हाऊ डू यू गो नाही असं फक्त सिंगल वर्ड नाही उठून घरी बाहेर गेल्यानंतर काय होतो आय वॉन्ट टू हिअर एव्हरीथिंग व्हॉट डू यू सी व्हॉट डू यू स्मेल व्हॉट आर युअर चॅलेंजेस कॅन वी प्लीज हिअर फ्रॉम यू
एक्सक्यूज मी मॅम
Yes.
Yeah. So my house is little far away from school, so I use our local bus, and it's very hard to find buses in the late afternoons as my school is from 12:10 to 5:30. So I have to get up really early since I'm in my 10th, first for my tuition and then my school. So I have this 1 hour to rest, and then I have to quickly change and go to the bus stop because I know the timings since I regularly go to school. I see that it's in the late hot afternoon, many people stand at the bus stop waiting for the bus. And even though the bus say they are after every 15 minutes, they came very late at like 1 hour and half hour. So many times I also get late at school. And other than bus, our school is like deep inside, so I have to walk a lot, really walking. And in the hot afternoon, I have to walk so much and my head aches. So I really get sick sometimes, and even my class teachers cannot understand me. They say that, no, you're making excuses not to go to school. Why wouldn't I love to go to school? I love coding too, but all that sunburn and sun heat, already I'm facing a problem of nosebleeds. And when I get like too heat on my head and all, my nose bleeds suddenly. So that is the problem that I face regularly, not only or like in a week or so. It's regularly. Even in winter season, sometimes it's little cloudy and it's okay for me. But most of the days, even now, we can see there are so much heat in the afternoon, especially at 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock. So this was my experience. Other than this, I want to ask you 2 questions if you would allow me, please. So first question would be in a general. I was reading a newspaper and I saw that there was a news that AI is going to replace 99% of the jobs, such as cashiers and all. So wouldn't that increase the percentage of unemployment in our country? Especially we are there are very big threat to us as an employment, and our economic is already suffering. But due to this increased percentage, would be there more increased unemployment. And I think that in further future, even now AI is very reasonable for us, quickly to access. Anyone, even the middle class families can get access to. And the big companies, they would really like to prefer the cheap AI other than regularly monthly paying employee or a person. They would really like to prioritize. They would really like to prioritize the AI. And the second question I would like to ask is in Hindi, so my friends could also understand it. मैं ये कहना चाहती हूँ कि हम लोग AI यूज़ करते हैं अपनी पढ़ाई के लिए. अभी तो मैं भी यूज़ कर रही हूँ, 10th में हूँ. बट मैं ये देख रही हूँ कि आगे जाने के बाद बहुत सारे जो कॉलेज के एसेस हमको लिखने पड़ते, और जो बहुत सारी ऐसी चीज़ें होती है जो हम AI से यूज़ करते. और मैंने ये खुद देखा है कि जो कॉलेज के फर्दर एसेस होते हैं, कॉम्पिटिटिव एग्ज़ाम के एसेस होते हैं, वो हम पहले ही AI से देखते, उसको जस्ट कॉपी पेस्ट करते माइंड में रीड करके. तो क्या ये अप्रोप्रिएट है, मतलब हम लोग के लिए सही है, क्या हम यूज़ कर सकते हैं एज अ स्टूडेंट्स? और बहुत सारे ऐसे तो जन्स बोलते हैं कि ये मिसयूज़ है. सो प्लीज़ कैन यू एलैबोरेट?
श्योर, वेरी गुड. Can you please tell your name, beta?
Maria Mustafa.
Maria, correct?
Yeah.
Hi. Thank you.
And just a little request, my friends also has the same question. Can you just please tell it in Hindi?
चलेगा, absolutely चलेगा हिंदी में. फर्स्ट मैं दूसरा क्वेश्चन रिस्पॉन्ड करूँगी, और अगर मैं इंग्लिश में बात करना चालू करूँ तो प्लीज़ ताली मारो और बोलो चेंज करो, ठीक है? सो ये जो इशू है कि क्वेश्चन है AI, चैट GPT, AI रिलेटेड टेक्नोलॉजी यूज़ करके हम आंसर निकाल रहे हैं. कल कॉलेज जाना है, कॉलेज का ऐसे लिखना है एडमिशन के लिए, और वो भी हम कॉपी करके हो सकता है. और एक पार्ट भी है AI टेक्नोलॉजी का, कॉलेज एप्लीकेशंस में जो बैठे हैं वहाँ पे, उनके पास भी वो सॉफ्टवेयर है जो उनको पता चलता है कि इफ़ दिस हैज़ बीन, क्या ये AI से जनरेट हुआ है. सो वो भी है. तो आई वुड एंकरेज कि आप प्लीज़ AI, चैट GPT, कोई भी रिलेटेड ये टेक्स्ट, स्पीच टू टेक्स्ट और आइडियाज़ टू टेक्स्ट जो टूल्स अभी आ रहे हैं, उनको आप केयरफुली यूज़ कीजिए. उनको ऐसे यूज़ कीजिए कि आपको कुछ समरी जानना है, यू नो, यू वांट टू क्विकली लर्न, आपको पटकन यू वांट टू लर्न समथिंग अबाउट लेट्स से द अरेबियन सी, देन उसके लिए आप यूज़ कीजिए, यू नो, टू रीड अबाउट इट, टू क्विकली अंडरस्टैंड. बट यूज़ योर वॉइस. द स्ट्रेंथ ऑफ अ ह्यूमन बीइंग इज़ योर वॉइस, योर आइडिया. कीप दैट यूनिक. Yeah, so I would say है technology, but you have to be slightly smarter than that, and you'll always be smart than that. तो आप please वो use कीजिए. तो I think first we'll answer the second question and then we'll go back. हिंदी में it's okay. Okay. Jen, thank you. Yeah. और आपका पहला question था क्या AI हमारे jobs लेंगे, छीन लेंगे. Disruption होगा. AI will create disruption होने वाला है, बट जितने जॉब्स निकल जाएंगे उतने ही नए जॉब्स ही आएंगे. दैट इज़ द ट्रूथ. बिकॉज जैसे मैंने अर्लियर बोला था, अगर हमको फ्यूचरिस्टिक सिटी बनाना है, हम सिर्फ फ्यूचरिस्टिक दिखने में इज़ नॉट इनफ. इज़ इट ह्यूमन? जो आपकी तकलीफ़ है अब आज, बस का टाइमिंग, लोकेशन ऑफ आपका स्कूल, क्लाइमेट, इतने फैक्टर्स वो AI जनरेट नहीं कर सकता. वो ह्यूमन को जनरेट करना पड़ेगा फॉर आवर सिटी, फॉर योर स्ट्रीट. उतना डिटेल डेटा अभी तक AI में नहीं है. सो डिटेल्ड ओरिएंटेड जॉब्स ज़्यादा होंगे, एम्पैथी रिलेटेड जॉब्स ज़्यादा होने वाले, ह्यूमन इंटेलिजेंस डिमांड विल बी मोर, क्रिएटिव इंडस्ट्री बहुत आगे जाने वाला है. फील्ड्स लाइक लैंडस्केप आर्किटेक्चर, एनवायरमेंटल स्टडीज़, जहाँ पे आपको एनवायरनमेंट, लैंडस्केप इज़ नॉट ओनली जस्ट पेड़ पौधे, इट इज़ ऑल्सो कि यहाँ पे ये हमने उगाया है तो 10 साल के बाद क्या होने वाला है, उसका सॉइल इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा, राइट. सो आई थिंक एक्सपीरियंस बेस्ड जो जॉब्स है वो रहेंगे और वो एक्चुअली इंक्रीज होंगे.
लवली क्वेश्चन मारिया. मुझे आई वुड लाइक टू हाँ, सॉरी. सो सेकंड क्वेश्चन पे जब आते हैं हम लोग कि हाँ, हम लोग कितना इजी हो गया है ना कॉपी करना. पहले टीचर्स बोलते थे, मार खाते थे, कॉपी कर लिया, चिट्ठी पकड़ लिया. बट एक बेसिक क्वेश्चन आता है कि हमें लर्न करना है, हमें अपनी पर्सनालिटी डेवलप करनी है, हमें ज़िंदगी में आगे बढ़ना है, तो कुछ करना पड़ेगा. आज मैंने कॉपी करके ना लिख दिया, वो SOPs लिख दिए, मेरे रिकमेंडेशन लेटर्स भी मैंने अपने हिसाब से लिख के साइन करवा के ये लेके आई, सबमिट कर दिया. बट कॉलेज में से फॉर एग्जांपल येस दे हैव, उनके पास एक सॉफ्टवेयर होता है नॉट ओनली टू चेक हाउ यूनिक योर SOPs और एसेज आर, बट ऑल्सो कि आपने किसी से 30% का थ्रेशोल्ड होता है, डिपेंड्स ऑन डिफरेंट यूनिवर्सिटीज़. 30% का थ्रेशोल्ड होता है. अगर 30% आपका किसी के साथ मैच हुआ तो आपको उधर राइट अवे यू आर रिजेक्टेड. सो वो रिजेक्शन नहीं लेते कि हम थोड़ी मेहनत कर लेते हैं भाई, कि जाना है, सीखना है, SOPs क्यों लिख रहे हैं, एसेस क्यों लिखने, सीखने के लिए लिख रहे हैं, राइट. सो हम मास्टर्स जाएंगे, और अभी इंडिया इतना टेक्नोलॉजिकली डेवलप नहीं है विद रिस्पेक्ट टू हाउ जापान इज़, हाउ साउथ कोरिया इज़. अगर मैं सिर्फ एशियन कंट्रीज़ के बारे में बात करूँ, क्या वो लोग भी वैसे ही करते हैं? नहीं, राइट. दे आर कंसिडर्ड टू बी वन ऑफ द मोस्ट हार्ड वर्किंग कंट्रीज़. Yes, we are, but they are working more harder than us. So this is more like what is अपना कंसाइंस क्या बोलता है कि कॉपी करके यार कोई भी पास कर लेगा, पर उधर ही लिमिट, दैट्स योर लिमिट. आगे बढ़ना है ज़िंदगी में, देन वी हैव टू पुट आवर ओन एफर्ट्स. एंड फर्स्ट क्वेश्चन, इट्स अमेजिंग. सो आई रिमेंबर इवन नारायण मूर्ति एड्रेसिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर क्वेश्चन कि अभी AI आ गया, सब ऑटोमेट हो गया, अभी क्या हम लोग घर जाए? तो क्या हम लोग इवॉल्व नहीं हुए एप से? क्या अभी हम लोग सिर्फ एप है या व्हाटएवर द होमो सेपियंस है? नहीं, राइट. हम लोग इवॉल्व हुए. जैसे इवॉल्व हो रहे हैं वैसे हमारी ज़रूरतें बढ़ रही है, और वो ज़रूरतें पूरी करने के लिए हम लोग के पास एक्स्ट्रा एम्प्लॉयमेंट तो रहेगा. वो तो दैट्स आई मीन टेकन कि जितना हम लोग टेक्नोलॉजिकली, हम लोग ने बचपन में एक बेसिक हर बार एक ऐसे लिखा है, टेक्नोलॉजी बून और अ बेन, राइट. तो हर बार उस पर एडवांटेजेस भी है, डिसएडवांटेजेस तो बिल्कुल भी है. तो हम लोग अपने आप को इतना केपेबल बना सके कि हाँ भाई ये तो हम उखाड़ लेंगे, कोई ये नहीं है. द स्किल सेट्स दैट आई हैव और वी हैव और विल डेवलप विदाउट यूजिंग or copying, using AI for developing your skill sets and not just, you know, infringement on whatever you are trying to submit at a college level. So ऐसा भी होता है कि बहुत लोग ऐसे speeches होते हैं जैसे है ना, AI से आ तो जाता है speech, जब आदमी podium पे खड़े रह के speech देना चाहे तो ही हड़बड़ा जाता है, right? तो offline ठीक है, virtual ठीक है, but जब actual में inhuman कॉन्वर्जेशंस करनी होती है, वो सब AI से तो नहीं होंगी, वो तो हमें ही करनी पड़ेंगी.
Just quickly, I'll just speed up. I'll just add to what both of them have said कि AI से हमको सब मिलेगा, विजुअलाइजेशन भी मिलेगा, लेकिन वो करने के लिए तो ह्यूमन ही लगेगा. लाइक कि ये बनाना है, वैसे बनाना है, ये सब मिलेगा आइडियाज़, पर बनाने के लिए तो लगेगा. और जैसे जब भारत में पहली बार कंप्यूटर्स आए थे तभी यही हुआ था कि कंप्यूटर सबके जॉब छीन लेगा और अभी सब बेकार हो जाएंगे. पर वैसे हुआ है क्या? नहीं हुआ है, क्योंकि वो हमारे पास अपना ब्रेन है और अपना वॉइस है, तो वो हमारी ताकत है और उससे हम और भी आगे बढ़ जाएंगे. और AI का हम यूज़ करें कि ना कि AI हमारा यूज़ करे. तो ये आप जो यंग जनरेशन है वो आप ये ध्यान में रखिए कि AI जो है वो अपने लिए हम यूज़ करेंगे, अच्छे काम के लिए यूज़ करेंगे. तो that is what.
I'm sorry, we've run very much over time, but thank you all so much for listening. I hope this has been great food for thought, and that you've been able to see a little bit about what we might be able to use artificial intelligence for, but also what we might not be able to use it for. The world is incredibly complex. And we have a lot of complexity that we need to deal with going into the future. So the story is not finished. It's a very exciting time to be alive. And so please join me in thanking Dr. Shruti, Smita, and Sanika for their time with us today. And thank you.